Welcome, everybody, to a Diff'Rant Perspective. I'm your host, Jason Diffendal, and with me is not Jill Diffendal. Filling in for Jill Diffendal, Eric Morton.
Thank you, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm glad I was your first choice. I definitely didn't rush over here for this.
Well, so Eric, today this is a free public showing of a Diff'Rant Perspective, which is a typically a WIGS exclusive show, but we decided to put it on the 50-hour marathon as a treat for all of you non-WIGS members to see what you're missing. And I guarantee this is going to make you jump right over to patreon.com/WDWNT and sign up for WIGS right in the middle of my show here, because I think you're going to love it.
Of course.
And if that's not the case, then maybe you'll do it for Eric's show next. But
what are you talking about? What am my show next?
Aren't you having Boxed In?
Boxed In is tomorrow. After me is that Florida man guy.
Oh, Florida man's here tonight.
Yeah, I heard he's coming.
Okay. I thought Boxed In was tonight. You know, I'm so confused. I just got off of a cruise ship this morning. So Jill and I both were on the Disney Dream this week. We just got off this morning in Miami and then had to drive 4 hours home from Miami this morning. Only
5 people in your car?
Only 5 people in my car.
That's not bad.
No, it wasn't too bad.
How was the cruise?
The cruise was good. So I came back figuring maybe there was some cruise stuff I could rant about, and there absolutely is.
Yeah, the Miami port, for one.
The port of Miami is one of them, absolutely. So we could talk about cruise stuff if we run out of other stuff. But I thought I thought we needed to talk a little bit about Bob Chapek, because that's apparently the theme of this 50-hour marathon.
Yeah.
I think it was
You kind of missed some stuff last night.
I think it was great how Tom engineered Chapek's firing to happen right before the 50-hour celebration of Chapek's firing. Like, he had that planning worked out for that amazingly well.
The man.
Yep. Amazing. So I did have some other things to rant about too, but I think we'll have to get started with Chapek and that other Bob too. If anybody has any questions, comments, people can put them in the chat. We've got a big screen over here. Jill is okay. She's just a little tired, but she will be.
How about your wife and kids? Are they tired too? Are they all worn out?
Yes.
And Jill's worn out, and you're just here like soldiering on through?
I'm soldiering on. I mean, granted, I think if you want to talk about soldiering on, I think Jake has been awake more hours straight than I have. So
have you been awake the whole time, Jake?
Yep.
Wow.
So if anybody's soldiering on, it's Jake.
Yeah.
And that's why we can excuse the wrong clip and the restarting of the show, because Jake is now...
Look, I don't feel sorry for Jake. We offered to give him a cot, and he said no. The luxury accommodations we were prepared to provide.
We were.
Above and beyond.
We were.
Sorry, that was the Chapek side of me. I'm just kidding, Jake. We love you.
Jake is going to take a 3-week vacation after the show, I think.
Is he going to Tokyo and leaving me in charge?
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's sort of a trend around here.
It happens quite a bit, doesn't it? It doesn't it? All right, so let's delve into some rants. Let's see. Those 7 p.m.'s bedtimes paid off. So they did. Actually, I didn't go to bed at 7 p.m., although last night I did go to bed on the early side because...
Did you get the early departure?
We did. We had a 7 a.m. breakfast this morning. That was our schedule. But people are asking, so we'll talk a little bit about the cruise. So we left Miami on Monday morning. This was a double dip at Castaway Cay cruise. So Tuesday we were at Castaway Cay, Wednesday we were at Nassau, Thursday we were at Castaway Cay, and then Friday we were nowhere. We were in the ocean, somewhere between Castaway Cay and Miami, doing donuts all day.
Bobbing around.
Yep. So it was good. It was nice. It wasn't relaxing, but I mean, a cruise is what you make it. It could have been relaxing if I wanted to.
Was that your first time on a Dream?
This was my first time on the Dream.
Okay. So, what was your favorite bar?
So this is my first time on the Dream. So this now has completed my quest of cruising on all 5 Disney ships.
Oh, good for you. And I haven't done a fantasy.
So I did the fantasy a couple of years ago. Favorite bar. I don't even know what this bar is called, but it's the bar next to the adult pool.
Okay.
I don't know if it has a name or not, but
Cove?
so
Cove Lounge?
maybe it's the Cove Bar.
Cove Bar?
But it's the one that has like bar stools in the water. In the adult. So there's
Oh, you didn't even have to get up to go to the bathroom.
So this was on deck 11. Deck 11. No. Was it 11? I can't remember. It's getting around.
It's on top.
It's a good thing there's a map like at every elevator and stairwell because you need it.
Man, they should do that on the Wish.
Wouldn't that be great? You'd have 3 maps. That's it.
Yeah.
This was so there's it's in the Cove area, which is the adult area. It's behind the Cove Cafe, which is the coffee bar.
Right.
There's a pool and there's a bar there. And so 2 days ago, maybe it was yesterday. Jill and I went up to the bar, and I ordered. Oh, this was Thanksgiving. It was Thursday. Jill and I go to the bar, and the drink of the day was like a pumpkin spice martini kind of thing, which I had, which was really good. And then Jill asked for a old fashioned with Woodford they had, and so the guy makes mine, and then he starts to make Jill's, and it took him a very long time to make this old fashioned. He was very meticulous about the cherries and the orange, and muddled the cherries, and then filled it up with ice, and then he took the jigger and he filled it. You know how like there's the single and the double side, right?
Yeah.
So he filled the double side and poured it in. Then he filled the double side again and poured it in. The glass was bigger than this. The glass was like a 20-ounce glass. And he put in 4 shots of bourbon, and then he poured in a little more on top of it.
There you go.
And then shook it up, and then he sprinkled the sugar on top, and it was bourbon smoked sugar.
Yeah, wow. No wonder Jill's not here today.
Well, I mean, kind of, yeah. So I think from a purely value perspective, I think that drink was $17
Wow.
for a quadruple.
Yeah, but you got like 10 ounces of bourbon out of the deal.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So I think purely from a value point, that was the best bar on the ship. But it may have only been because of that bartender. I don't know. But it was great. Some of the other bars were, they're okay. But 2 stops at Castaway Cay is pretty tiring, I will say. Although the second one,
I've done that before.
The second one was on Thanksgiving Day. So I think there were a fair amount of people that decided to just sleep in, and then there were a fair amount of people that decided, I was only here 2 days ago, I don't need to get off again.
Yeah.
And so Castaway Cay on the second day was like almost empty.
Yeah.
It was almost empty. It was really great. We went to the adult beach, and there was, I don't know, no more than 100 people on the adult beach.
I went to the adult beach and I got one of those hammocks.
Yeah?
I just fell asleep and took a nap for like 3 hours. It was great.
Yep. But
Anyway.
so it was fun. We had a good time. It's not, I mean, like I said, it's not a relaxing vacation unless you force it to be one, but they keep you packed full of activities. But anyway, wonder if Disney is a good first cruise. That's a great question.
I have a great answer for that.
If you're a Disney fan, it is. If you're not a Disney fan, then no, it's not, because it's more expensive than any other cruise line. And it's a different experience. It's not a prototypical cruise experience. There's no casino, which I actually kind of miss. It's a great experience. It's a great Disney experience. It's not a typical cruise experience because there's a lot of things that don't happen on a Disney cruise, and then there's a lot of things that happen on a Disney cruise that don't happen on any other cruise, like character meet and greets, fireworks.
Yeah.
So it's great. It's not. It's weird. It's hard to say whether it's good for a first-time cruiser or not.
My first cruise was U.S. Marine Corps, and Marines on a Navy ship are like third-class citizens. They just cram you in like hallways and all these places. So literally opposite ends of the spectrum than when I went on my first Disney cruise. I don't have any frame of reference in between, right? I have all those cruises in the Marine Corps, and then I have Disney. And I have to say, Disney is better.
Probably.
We probably hit better ports in the Marine Corps, but Disney in general was better.
Yeah. But anyway, let's talk about. Well, Rose, I feel compelled to answer Rosie.
I want to. It's the Magic. It's the Magic.
What Disney ship would be a first good cruise? It's either the Magic or the Wonder because they're the smallest.
They're the smallest. They go to the best ports.
Yeah, because they're the smallest.
The Magic has the Tangled show now.
Okay, we didn't have the Tangled show.
I don't remember what's on the Wonder now. What shows did you have?
We had Beauty and the Beast.
Yep.
And then Golden Mickey's, and then Believe.
Okay.
So the only one of those I saw.
So 5 days, you got 3 shows.
Yeah, because one of
Would they
them,
have like a juggler or something?
there was a magician one night, and then there was what's that the new movie Strange World.
Oh.
That they had that because that premiered this week, so they had that on there as one of the shows. The only one I went to see was Beauty and the Beast because that's the only one I hadn't seen before, and it was good. I liked it. But anyway. Enough of this, and let's start ranting.
Yeah, that's what they're here for.
Because that's what everyone's here for, right? That's what I'm here for. So, Bob Chapek. So, obviously, when analysts started calling for Chapek's firing, that's pretty significant. The stock did tank pretty much. Bought some, of course. I was kicking myself that I didn't buy any when it was down in the 80s when COVID hit, right? And I'm like, I should have bought some. But now, you know what you've got. COVID's over pretty much, and the stock is in the 80s.
Yeah, I
absolutely bought some. But when analysts are calling for Chapek's firing, here's my problem. Well, here's a couple of issues. It's amazing to me how much of a turnaround you can have from a couple months ago when they just gave Chapek a 3-year contract, right, to now. Like, other than stock price, not much has actually changed, right? Like, obviously there's less streaming subscribers or whatnot, which is what caused the stock price to drop. But fundamentally, nothing has really changed in the company. It's only the fact that their projections for streaming growth were wrong 6, 8, 10 months ago. And now it finally has proven itself, that streaming growth is not as healthy as they expected it to be, and the stock drops and Chapek's gone. So in some respects, I thought back when the stock was like in the high hundreds, like 180, 200, right? That was all based on streaming. Yeah. And I said back then, I'm like, I don't understand how you can value the streaming part of a conglomerate like Disney to that extent that it pushes up the stock price that much. Because we sat there, and I don't remember what show this was on, but we sat there and we calculated, okay, they say they have what, 300 million subscribers, 500 million subscribers?
They don't have 300 million.
Whatever they said, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But if they have 300 million subscribers, the valuation of the company went from like $100 a share to $180 a share. That's like $70 billion worth of market cap. Yeah. There's no way that 300 million streaming subscribers are worth $70 billion of market cap.
But at that point, people aren't trading on value, right? They're trading on behavior. They're trading on going, hey, it's going up, I'm going to buy. And I'm going to find that peak, and I'm going to get out. Right? And that's what they do. They catch a falling dagger, and then they ride it back up. They catch a falling dagger, and they ride it back up. There's millions of people in this country that do that for a living, and they're not necessarily basing their trading decisions on fundamentals. Now, the big guys generally want to see good fundamentals.
Sure.
Everyone, remember the AMC and movie
right.
pass or GameStop thing.
Yeah.
None
all
of that was
stuff.
based on fundamentals,
No,
right?
it wasn't.
It was like stock purchases for the sake of trolling, essentially.
And so here's the question, is that if the valuation at $180 or $200 a share was not based on fundamentals, the valuation at $90 a share is closer to the correct value based on fundamentals, in my point of view. I mean, it should be more than 100, but it's closer, right? And so the same people that push the stock up to $200 a share based on streaming are the people that ended up causing Chapek's downfall.
Well, I want to go back to you saying, hey, they gave him this 3-year extension. The theories out there are that they didn't have choice. They didn't have anyone to replace him yet.
Right.
They
absolutely.
hadn't got Iger's buy-in yet. Kevin Mayer and Tom Staggs wanted them to buy their company if they were to come back.
Right.
And obviously, if Chapek's the CEO and they want him to buy their company, he's going to read the.
He's got to approve that purchase.
He's not that dumb.
Right.
He's got to approve that purchase. So they were in a thing where they're like, you know what? It makes his buyout $20 million. It's kind of a drop in the bucket when you look at a couple quarters worth of stock growth. So to them, it was probably worth eating the $20-some million buyout to buy themselves some time and get Iger on board or get
as an interim, basically, right?
In place
in order to find a successor.
Right. So they basically were willing to dump that money down a hole. To buy themselves some time.
I mean, and so the other theory that I've heard is that they gave Chapek a 3-year contract essentially to prop up the stock price by saying the board was confident that his strategy is the right one and is working, right? So
So they literally have followed every little running a company for dummies move, right?
Yeah.
So you do that, make that.
Yep.
If a football coach gets a vote of confidence from the owner, he's getting fired. Right? Everybody knows that, right? If we break it down to those terms, there's nothing worse than a vote of confidence. It means you're not going to be there long.
Right.
So they did the vote of confidence to try to just shore up the stock for a few days, right? While they scrambled to have some good news somewhere. And it's the same thing when he didn't hit his numbers. What did he do? First thing, like the next day, hey, we're announcing layoffs. This is in the playbook.
Right.
You know, I think there's room for a leader with a company like Disney, for a leader to say, look, we missed the mark this quarter, but we're confident in our business plan.
Right.
We just don't have enough time, and sometimes these things go on a quarterly basis. And if we're going to build for the long-term strength of this company, maybe we don't base it on this quarterly earnings call.
Right.
Or,
But that's you hit on exactly what one of the main points I was going to say was that if they were confident in their business, then the stock wouldn't have tumbled as much as it did when the number of streaming subscribers went down a little bit. The problem is that Chapek overestimated the streaming growth and the streaming income, and he underestimated the cost of providing that streaming growth and streaming income. And so that set the Disney Plus as a whole in the red, basically.
And because Chapek is not a seasoned CEO, he doesn't, for being the CEO of Disney, didn't swing a big hammer in Hollywood, right?
Right.
He didn't have what we would call the ass capital to go in there and miss those numbers and still be able to stand up for it.
Right.
Right? He basically had to go in there and do the PR rounds, which is not his thing, right? He's not good at it.
God, no.
Had to go in there and do these things, and people see through that. Sure. A guy like Bob Iger, and look, Iger, we can talk. I'm sure we're going to talk about Bob Iger. He has his shortcomings, but what Iger can do is appear to be the adult in the room that really understands what's going on.
Yes.
He has an executive presence to go in front of all these people, all these hedge fund guys, and everybody else, and explain to them we have a plan and it's working. And he has the ability to not as much be ruled by the quarter to quarter.
That's right.
earnings.
And the problem is, I think Chapek had a plan, but when the plan didn't work all that well for this quarter, no one had the confidence in him or his plan to let it go and see if maybe his plan would work in the long term.
He ran out of friends, right? So you've alienated a very large segment of your consumer base,
right,
who's unhappy with you. And you did that to please the Wall Street people who literally their relationships with you are transactional.
Yes, absolutely.
So when you miss your number and you turn around, you don't, if he missed his number and he had millions of people, consumers saying, we love where the direction this guy's going, he's keeping his job.
Right.
But when he misses numbers and he's pissed everyone off,
that's right,
he's gone. You got to get rid of him.
There was no one, and I mean, obviously, the Disney fan community is a small community and certainly not as powerful as Wall Street analysts. But there were enough people with enough,
like all of Hollywood,
with enough sway that agreed with the Disney fan community that Chapek was a bad thing for the company. And, we were obviously, the Disney fan community were obviously the first to come out and say Chapek is a bad thing for the Walt Disney Company. But that was 3 years before he was even CEO, right? And it took that long for the rest of the world to catch up and see what he did and why it was bad for the company, and then get on board. And so, over the course of the 6 years where he was head of Parks and Resorts and then CEO, his poor decisions eventually caught up with him, and there was no one out there to defend him because it was pretty obvious that bad decision after bad decision didn't leave anyone very happy with the product that they were getting.
Well, his decisions were consistently driven by cost. So as an executive, you have to do that, right? These people have to factor that in. But the only plays that he had in his play, he had 2 plays in his playbook. They were cut costs and raise prices.
Right.
Those are the only 2 things he had. He didn't have, there was no nuance to how he did it. So like Bob Iger raised prices a million times.
Sure.
But the difference is it's like they say, a sales phrase is, pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered, right? You can do it if you do it right. You can do it the way Iger did it. If you can also give me a little bit more value for that money.
It's perceived value for the money.
If you give me that perceived value and that good experience, and you raise the price, we go, hey, we're accustomed to these price raises by now. But if you're just, granted, we are kind of, I would say, like, have become, in some ways, like a consumer advocacy group where the internet is to the point now where small people like us, because it doesn't ring a bell with big groups, but we can notice these price increases.
Right.
And we can monitor not just, hey, the ticket to get into Disney has gone up, but like, hey, look, everything went up 6%. All the food went up 6%.
Drinks went up.
Oh, it's this used to be a 12-ounce fillet. It's an 8-ounce fillet now.
Genie Plus.
Hey, right.
No more Magical Express. So it's
with the ability of, I'm not saying us, but in general, like communities of people have access to it's easier now with data.
Social news.
It's easy to figure out when you're bilking customers. And there's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it. And the way not to do it is to
the way Chapek
is to fill your calendar with these things as opposed to like, okay, it's our annual, like we gotta kind of have
Everyone
a reckoning.
expected a ticket price increase in whatever quarter, that it normally came.
But every week when I go and I'm like, let me read on the Disney news, and every week there's some new way of them, kind of sticking it to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people don't, look, he didn't get, as much as we would like to say this is true, he did not get fired because Parks people were mad.
No.
It contributed because there's no one had his back.
That's right.
But the Parks were the division that was doing well.
Absolutely.
Right? If anything,
the Parks
it's because he didn't go all in on Parks and they've been non-responsive to Epic Universe.
Right.
They have no response to that. They still don't. They aren't offering these full experiences, and these things eventually start making the news, right? The skimflation articles that were going around, last year, and all these things where you're paying more money and they're chopping away at little perks, little benefits.
Absolutely.
And so, but he was, if his job was merely to report the Parks numbers to Wall Street, he'd be fine.
He would still be working for the company if he was still head of Parks and Resorts. That's the funny thing. That's actually I mean, I don't want to call it silver lining, but it's the actual best thing to happen to us as Disney fans was for Chapek to get promoted to CEO, because that's what led to him getting fired. He would have never gotten fired as head of Parks and Resorts with the way the parks and resorts are performing right now. That segment of the company is making tons of money, and it's true that people are feeling the pressure.
Hold on. Let me deal with some bots.
It's true that people are, that people are seeing the nickel and diming and the price increases in a negative fashion, but that would not have led to Bob getting fired. It would have led to him as head of Parks and Resorts getting told to tone it down a bit, right? And someone else, if the streaming numbers were bad, someone else would have taken that fall. It wouldn't have been Bob as head of Parks and Resorts. And so, as much as we groused when he got promoted to CEO, that
it could have been the best thing for us.
That was a necessary step for us to get rid of him, I think.
And you look at all the things that transpired, right? There, look. From a certain point of view, Bob Iger just really
screwed him over.
Screwed everyone over.
Well, see,
screwed him over,
so
put him in a very bad spot.
The thing is that everyone's happy that Chapek is gone. I'm worried about what we're going to do now. So there's different camps out there that think, well, Iger's got to be better than Chapek. I mean, a lot of the problems that Chapek inherited were because of Iger, and I don't know that Iger was not a parks person. He never was a parks person.
No.
And so the parks were great under certain leaders, and it got to the point. Parks were great under Tom Staggs.
Yeah.
And then Tom Staggs had to take the fall for Shanghai having massive cost overruns and delays. That was the biggest mistake of the last 20 years, I think, was that Tom Staggs had to take the fall and got booted because he was a great head of parks, and him getting booted led to the rise of Chapek. And so but a lot of what happened in the interim was Iger's fault. I mean, it happened when he was CEO. So there were a lot of things that happened that weren't necessarily Chapek's decisions.
Iger greenlighted Genie Plus.
That's right. There were things that weren't necessarily Chapek's decisions, but he also went along with them, right? Like he was on the bandwagon of all these price increases, and so. I mean, in some respects, he got screwed, but in a lot of respects,
good.
In a lot of respects, I don't feel bad for him that he got screwed, because we needed to get rid of him one way or the other. He was terrible for Parks, and then he was terrible at CEO, and but I want to go back because there's a consensus out there, I think, of Iger's got a 2-year contract, right? Which is plenty of time for them to find someone else.
Right.
And what does Iger need to do over the next 2 years? Well, he needs to stabilize. Well, he needs to raise the share price back to where Wall Street wants it, which I think is in the 120s, 130s. He needs to get a handle on streaming costs, because it's not actually the subscriber growth that put Chapek under. It's the cost of providing the content that put Chapek under. And people are out there saying, they just bought Fox with a ginormous library of content. All Chapek had to do was put all that content on Disney Plus, and that would have been great. Yeah. But he committed to spending umpteen billions of dollars on new content, way more than I think was necessary. Like every time you turn around, there's a new Disney Plus series coming out. And I'm like, where are they getting all the money to to create all of these new series on Disney Plus? It's not something that I necessarily want. Like, I don't have the time to watch all these new series. I haven't watched any new series in a long time.
It's funny too. I remember them bragging about the average Disney Plus subscriber had streamed Encanto like 4 times.
Yeah.
That's bad. If you're Disney, that's bad. Their costs their only costs other than creating the content is actually streaming it to you, right?
Well,
what they want is like a gym. You want people to join, but you don't want people to use it.
I think the actual streaming infrastructure and costs aren't significant compared to everything else. But the other problem with the average Disney Plus subscriber streaming content 4 times is that that's deceptive because the likelihood is that certain families streamed it 20 times. You know, 20% of the subscribers streamed it 20 times, and then 80% of the subscribers didn't stream it at all.
Yeah.
And so the problem is, you know, when you say an average of 4 times, that means it looks like your content is pleasing your entire audience, but it's not. And I think that's an issue when you're coming out with very costly new series virtually every month, and a lot of people aren't watching them, or a lot of people aren't liking them. I mean, I think
I've liked many of the series.
I haven't had time to watch all of them. That's
Mandalorian has been a huge hit.
That's been a huge hit.
Book of Boba Fett, huge hit.
But there have been plenty that haven't been a huge hit.
Moon Knight,
But I mean, the problem isn't actually whether they're a huge hit or not. The problem is that they cost a lot of money and they're pushing through so many of them so fast, right? I think people could have used some downtime. You don't need a new streaming series to start the week before the other one ends, right? Like, give them a month off. I think they're overpaying for content because they're pushing too much content out and they're not taking advantage of their catalog.
Well, I don't know what the legal status is. I know they own all this Fox content.
Right.
I don't know if other people already have the streaming rights to a lot of that.
Some do, right? Some do.
Some of these big libraries and
that's it's a potential issue. I mean, I think
also Fox has a lot of content that's going to be PG-13 or R.
Sure.
Or that Disney is going to have to make a decision.
Well, and
are we going to have the grown-up?
That's part
Disney
of the
Plus?
problem too, and that's part of the problem with why I think Disney Plus subscriber numbers have sort of plateaued, is because everyone with kids subscribes to it, everyone who likes Disney subscribes to it, and then everyone else doesn't see a value. We have a super chat that I think we can talk about, but now it's scrolled off the screen.
I saw it was $19.99 by I think it was from Devin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are encouraging people. Obviously, Super Chat is enabled. YouTube takes a large cut. You can go to
toys.wdwnt.com and donate there too.
And there's the link to our auction or to our donation page. And we appreciate that. Oh my gosh, these bots, man.
The bots are bad. But I want to circle back to what you said about Iger having the political capital in Hollywood to stand up and say, look, we've got a strategy, we hit a bump, but we're confident in our strategy, and it's just going to take a couple more quarters to show results, right?
Michael asks, is there a schedule for the marathon? It's actually in the description of this video. If you look at our description, there's also on the marathon.wdwnt.com the schedule. Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You talked about Iger having the political capital to get up and say, you know, we have a strategy and we're confident in it, and it's going to take more than a quarter to play out. This is actually a problem. This is a bigger problem than just Disney. This is a problem with corporate America and Wall Street, is that, as you said, there are these people that just buy stocks and turn around and sell them and make a living doing it because all they want is the appreciation. They're not investing in a company. They're gambling. And
right.
they're doing it in such a way that it forces companies to focus too much on the quarterly earnings and not on the long term. And this has been a problem. This has been a problem for a long time in corporate America, and it's been a problem for a long time in Disney.
Growth is more important than fundamentals.
That's right. And this problem with Disney actually started around the turn of the century. Because when Michael Eisner came in 1984, he was a man with a vision. And he executed on that vision for almost 20 years. And he had a long-term vision for the company. He had a long-term plan for growth and expansion. And for the most part, for the first 3/4 of his tenure, he expertly executed on that vision, even though it was a mostly long-term thing. And he wasn't concerned about the quarterly numbers every quarter. He was concerned about executing on his vision. And it wasn't till around 2000-ish when some things started to not work out so well, and then people got focused on quarterly numbers, and then people started calling for Eisner's ouster. Yeah. That's when things sort of turned south for the Walt Disney Company as a media company with a long-term plan.
Right. That's why they're so cautious now. And I don't know this for a fact, but I would bet that the reason that Tron construction has taken so long, for instance, is because someone's afraid to put all those construction costs on one quarter.
Yeah.
So they're spreading these costs out as long as they can, so it makes a smaller dent in their quarter-by-quarter growth.
That's right.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that's my assumption. I'm not I don't have a business degree. But
yeah. So I think that's a problem, but I think part of the issue is that Iger came in as the replacement for Eisner and sort of kowtowed to this demands that the quarterly numbers be good every quarter. And as you said before, he was good at doing it, and he was good at doing it in a way that didn't piss people off. There were some major missteps, and I think overpaying vastly for Fox was probably one of the biggest ones. Right? Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that Iger did that hurt the company was buying Fox. Like buying Marvel and Pixar were all great, and he did them early in his tenure. And then he bought Fox and spent way too much money, and now the company has debt, and they have growth that they need to. They have growth targets. The growth targets that are sort of unsustainable. Yeah. And the only way to do that is to cut costs and raise prices, and that's where Chapek came in. Right. And he was the man that knew how to cut costs and raise prices. But with a company that's as diversified and global and loved as Disney, that's not the way that people want your company to be run.
Yeah, and a lot of people will say they put Universal versus Disney, right? Yeah. What they're talking about is theme parks.
Absolutely, yeah, sure.
But Comcast, who owns Universal, de-pantsed Bob Iger in the Fox deal. Right?
Absolutely.
They drove the cost up big time.
Sure.
And if you remember, Bob Iger said the crown jewel of this whole thing is Sky. Yeah. Which is in England, right?
Right.
Or in the UK.
Right.
So what happens? But he buys it for way more than he should have. Yeah. Because Comcast outplayed him. And then it doesn't come with Sky, the crown jewel.
Yeah.
So we paint that as some sort of way. Look, he bought a lot of companies. He had a big fail there, I think. I think it was a big fail.
Absolutely. And I think that has put the Walt Disney Company in the predicament that it's in right now, where they have to cut costs and raise prices to make these quarterly numbers, which are A, unsustainable, and that's Wall Street's fault, and B, they have all this debt. They have, and we reported and talked about capital expenditures, right, and how there's more capital expenditures than in years past, but not much of that is in parks and resorts, right? Like
I think they've made a lot of capital expenditures in parks.
They have, but they haven't announced anything.
They've been very cautious lately.
They haven't announced anything to compete with Epic Universe. No. And that's where I think, now, is Epic Universe going to be the grandest new thing since sliced bread? I don't think so. But the perception by the vast majority of people, whether they're Disney fans or not, is that Universal is going to build and open this Epic Universe thing, and it's going to be the Disney killer. I've seen headlines that say the Disney killer. Now, obviously, Epic Universe isn't going to kill Disney. It may not even make a huge dent. What it's going to do is it's going to take a lot of people out of Disney property for some amount of time to go visit this new thing in Orlando.
And they'll be at Universal property, then they'll have to drive through a bad neighborhood and then be on Universal property again to go to Epic Universe.
That's if they don't take the tram.
Yeah.
But still, it's
What's
not.
a tram?
That's a great question. But it's Epic Universe is not the Disney killer, but it is, to a large extent, just another stone in the pathway that started with Harry Potter, where Universal is putting out quality attractions and quality lands, and Disney is coming back with what is essentially a feeble retort in Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway and Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, Guardians of the Galaxy, a lot of people like.
It's not really a response to Epic Universe, though.
Exactly. Bingo. And so Disney thinks they're responding to what Universal's doing, but when Universal
I don't think they think that. I think they want people to believe that because they don't have anything else to tell them.
That's right. That's right. And so Universal builds Hogsmeade and Disney builds Runaway Railway. There's a clear winner in that match.
Yeah.
Right? And then Universal builds Epic Universe, and Disney has opened Guardians of the Galaxy and Tron. There's a clear winner in that match, too.
Well, but these are not apples and apples, right? So when they built Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Disney's response wasn't Runaway Railway. Disney's response was they dumped a ton of money into their infrastructure for things like Magic Band, and
which wasn't necessarily a positive thing.
No, but I will say they did improve their technology infrastructure in the parks. Remember when you used to go to Epcot and your phone would burn up and be out of batteries in like an hour?
Yeah.
And then they put in all these, distributed antenna systems and all this Wi-Fi and all this backhaul.
That's not in a competition to Hogsmeade. That's general upkeep and improvement of your infrastructure.
But they were able to do things that Universal could not.
Sure, but it didn't appear like they were doing anything to the general public.
Right, I think they needed to make it more public. And it's not Runaway Railway, right? Your response to a new theme park is not, or a whole new, very well executed Wizarding World of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
They didn't have an answer in the form of attractions. They took their money and invested probably the same amount of money in other things.
Maybe. Yeah. But the problem is those things didn't make an impact on the vacationing public. It made their experience better once they got here, but it was not a reason to come visit.
Well, and I think in post-COVID age, Disney is still gun shy because Disney really got knocked on their ass by COVID more. Look, Disney, they had ESPN done, right, for a very long time. Studios, movie theaters, done. Theme parks, done. All this stuff. You go to Universal, they're like, oh, Comcast, yeah. Guess I'll bet Comcast like cable, their high-speed internet. Everyone got the higher plan. They're home streaming movies and working from home.
They were
Comcast was probably killing it. They were diversified well enough, and they were in a position that Disney wasn't in.
Right.
Disney was in this position where almost all of their core products were rendered helpless.
Right. Sure.
And Comcast went like this and Disney went like that. But
imagine how much Disney would have not gone like that if the $74 billion they spent on Fox wasn't on their balance sheet.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it may have been the other way if Comcast had spent all that money and taken on all that debt for Fox and it wasn't Disney.
Yeah. I mean, there's a major mistake. And I mean, I'm not a business analyst. Seems like a major mistake on the surface. I don't see any real benefit that Disney has gained out of the Fox acquisition.
Right. They have
and if so, it's certainly not something they're trumpeting out there, right?
They have not shown any return on that investment.
Little National Geographic.
Yeah, Nat Geo.
That's it. Right. You can buy Nat Geo stuff.
They did. Let me tell you this though. On the cruise, on the TVs in the stateroom, there's a Disney Plus highlights channel. And repeatedly, over the time I was on the ship, they played a commercial that basically said, you can now stream all seasons of The Simpsons on Disney Plus. That's the only marketing of a Fox asset that I've seen come out of the Fox deal.
There are people that think that that's Disney's leverage to get Marvel into Florida.
Sure.
Is to trade it for Simpsons.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. They just haven't capitalized on any of them yet. But so I don't, you know, and there's a lot of speculation out there. What's Iger going to do I saw an article today. The headline was, "Here are 3 things that Iger could do to help the parks," or whatever. I didn't even read it because it's kind of absurd. Mm-hmm. It's all speculation. But in reality, I think the parks are chugging along well enough that Iger doesn't have to really do anything. He could just wait it out.
He can ignore the parks.
He could. I mean, Josh D'Amaro is doing a very good job leading things. And there are a handful of things that, and this is kind of my hope, is that there are a handful of things that he could do that basically cost no money, that would make park fans very happy, would make it look like he cares about the parks, but would basically just be throwing us a bone.
Low-hanging fruit, quick win.
Right?
That's what he needs.
And you know what those are? Those are
park reservation
getting rid of park reservations. Right?
And people always say, oh, good, they'll get rid of Genie Plus. No, they will not.
They won't get rid of Genie Plus. They won't bring back Magical Express. But they can get rid of park reservations, which may actually make them money.
Yeah.
Right? It's not going to cost them any money to get rid of it, and it may make them money. Because people that show up from Seattle that can't get into the parks because they don't have a park reservation aren't going to buy tickets. But if they show up from Seattle and they don't need a park reservation, they're going to buy tickets and go in.
This is unpopular. I think they should keep Genie Plus because they're not getting rid of it. There's not a
right.
And they should just like quadruple the price of it, at least. Make it, because right now what happens is you get a little paper cut for $15 a person or whatever.
Right.
And then you wait in line the same amount of time because everybody bought it.
Right.
Make it so that if you really, it's really important to your family. You're a family from Denver that comes here once every 5 years, like Bob Chapek said.
You can budget for it.
You can budget for that and actually skip lines as opposed to paying $15 to be in the same line as everyone else who just paid $15.
Right. And so, in other words, make it like Express Pass at Universal.
Like Express Pass at Universal. Yeah. Other thing, I think Six Flags charges like $100 for this. $100 at Six Flags, man. That's.
And I have said this to people. People ask me, I'm coming into town and I really want to do Harry Potter for a day. How's the best way to do it? Or something like that, right? And like they're thinking, well, I could buy a 2-day, 2-park ticket and do both parks at Harry Potter. I'm telling them, buy a 1-day ticket and add on Express, and you'll have a much better experience, and you'll save a whole day of vacation time, and you'll spend the same amount of money. Yeah. Right? Because a 2-day ticket versus a 1-day ticket plus Express are about the same cost. You'll just save a whole day of your time by doing it that way and getting.
I think they can simplify. Right now, your experience as a Disney Parks guest is there's such a stratification.
There is.
Right? It's there's 19 things. Like, oh, you can get into the park early if you're at a deluxe resort and it's a Tuesday afternoon and it's a full moon.
Right.
And then you can get the Genie Plus, get you this, but not that. And the Lightning Lane gets you that, but not this. And nothing, get nothing of anything, but you got to get a virtual queue at 7 a.m. But you can get a virtual queue at 1 p.m. if you do this, but you can't park up till 2. You have to know too much stuff.
It's too complicated. It's absolutely too complicated. And that's why Genie Plus should be, like you said, if Genie Plus was a one-price add-on that just let you go in the Fast Pass line for any attraction once per day, like Express, and it cost $100, that would simplify things. It would probably bring in the same amount of money total, but it would be 1/5 of the number of people buying it. So it would cut down on the crowds in the Fast Pass line.
It would be better for standby people because you're not watching.
Absolutely.
25 Lightning Lane people go for every one of you. So you would make the experience better
for the people that paid for it, and you would make the experience better for the people that didn't pay for it.
Correct.
It's a win-win situation. All the way around, it's win-win. But Chapek's trying to nickel and dime, and then people come and they do it. And here's the other thing that I've been saying for a long time.
Everybody's mad because they get their wallet out every time they... You know.
People come and they do it because they're told they need to do it to skip the lines. It doesn't really speed up things that much. And then at the end of the day, they turn around and say, well, I spent $22 or I spent $38 and it saved me like maybe a half an hour, and they're pissed. And then they don't want to come back. They didn't have a good experience. So right now, the people that spend the money on Genie Plus don't have a good experience, and the people that don't spend the money on Genie Plus don't have a good experience.
Yeah.
Right? Because too many people buy it, makes the standby lines too long, and then it makes the fast pass lines too long. And nobody actually has a good experience. So you're charging money but not giving a premium experience. And honestly, that's the problem I had with the cruise line too, which I could talk about for a little bit. I think I just got a message that I think Haymaker is out front. Do you want to run out and meet him? And while I'll wrap this show up.
All right, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks for being on, Eric. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of this sort of thing, of cost cutting and stuff on the cruise, because it's kind of something that has that's on the top of my head at this point in time. So a Disney cruise is a premium product. It's priced way higher than any other cruise line. And what do you get for that cost? Well, you get the magic of Disney, which is some intangible value that Disney can provide that no one else can provide, of course. You get Disney characters, which no one else can provide, but which also you can get in the parks at some cost. But in terms of what Disney Cruise Line used to be 15, 20 years ago, and what it is now, the rest of the premium price that you pay doesn't actually come with a premium value anymore. And I'm going to reel off a couple of examples. That I've experienced this week on the cruise. The first one is Castaway Cay. So in 1998, when Castaway Cay first became a thing, Disney was the first cruise line to have a private island where you could go and enjoy the beach, and it was a beautiful beach, and there were great activities, and it was something that no other cruise line had. In the intervening 24 years, every other cruise line now has one or more private islands, and to be honest, a lot of them are better than Castaway Cay. Castaway Cay has not changed any in 25 years. It's the same. It's identical. They have obviously like refurbished some things or whatnot, but there's no new offerings at Castaway Cay. There's nothing at Castaway Cay that makes it any different than it was 25 years ago. And that's part of the reason why I think that the Castaway Cay double dip cruise that I just did, a lot of people didn't get off the ship that second day because there's not enough at Castaway Cay to make that a compelling decision. And so, obviously, Disney Cruise Line is developing a new private beach on Eleuthera, and I think it's going to be great, and I think it's going to probably top most other cruise lines' private islands. But at the present time, I've been to the Ocean Cay, which is MSC's private island, and I've been to Half Moon Cay, I think, whatever Norwegian's private island is. No, Great Stirrup Cay. Is Norwegian's private island. I've been to both of those, and I like both of those better than Castaway Cay. So at this point in time, the value that Castaway Cay used to bring to a Disney cruise isn't really there anymore because the competition has all caught on. In terms of on the ship amenities, there's plenty of other cruise ships out there now. Carnival Mardi Gras, the last 3 or 4 Royal Caribbean ships, the last couple Norwegian ships, all have fantastic onboard amenities. Pools, water slides, roller coasters, ropes courses, zip lines. The only thing that Disney has that's actually sort of unique is the Aqua Duck or the Aqua Mouse on the Wish. But honestly, those aren't that great. Like, I didn't even ride the Aqua Duck this time. I rode it on the Fantasy a number of years ago. It's kind of, it's fun. It's not necessarily something I want to stand in line a half an hour for. And so I kind of just didn't bother. It's not a compelling value proposition for me. It is for kids, and it's great for kids. It's not a compelling value proposition for me. The one thing that I think Disney does have on all these other cruises is the kid space. And the kid space on even the Magic and the Wonder, the oldest ships, is great. The Dream and the Fantasy kicked it up a notch, and the Wish has kicked it up like 3 notches in terms of how amazing the kid space is. So if you have kids that are somewhere between like 4 and 15, a Disney cruise will bring immense fun for your kids, probably much more than even you, because the kids spaces are so amazing. Now, all these other cruise ships have kids spaces, and some of them are good and some of them aren't, but that is one compelling value point that a Disney cruise has that no other cruise line has. And then the other thing I want to talk about is food. So, back in the early aughts, I did cruises on the Magic and the Wonder, and people thought the food was amazing. People were like sort of in disbelief of the food, and it was actually better than a lot of other cruise lines' food. But again, a lot of other cruise lines have stepped up their game with food, and Disney kind of hasn't. Even on the Wish, there are, like, Disney was one that sort of was one of the first cruise lines to give this assigned dining times, and you rotate with your servers, and that was a new thing, and it was really cool, and a lot of people liked it. Other cruise lines went different ways. Carnival went with this freestyle thing where all the dining rooms were open, and you could go to any one of them anytime you want, and you didn't have the same servers every day. But that's not necessarily a huge deal for a lot of people. And so, in some respects, the Disney Cruise Line doesn't have a compelling value proposition there either. And I will tell you, the food on the Dream this past week has been the most disappointing meals I've had on a cruise ship since Enchante on the Wish, but in a long time. The food was not that great. It's gone downhill quite a bit over the years. And there were certain times where we just sort of said, you know what? I don't even want to go to the dining room for dinner. I'm just going to go back and order room service, because actually the wings from room service were great. And you could get as many as you want. But the food in the regular dining rooms was pretty bad. And that, coupled with Disney, the quick service locations on the Disney ships, they're different names on different ships. Basically, they serve pizza and burgers and chicken fingers and hot dogs and some kind of sandwiches. And they're all the same on all the ships, and they're all kind of meh. On the Carnival Mardi Gras, they have not only like 7 different table service restaurants, they have 6 different quick service locations that have everything from Mexican burritos to seafood to Korean, and these are all quick service things that you just go up and you can get like 1 or 2 things, and they're all great. You can obviously get the burgers if you want the burgers, but let me tell you, Guy Fieri's burger joint on the Mardi Gras is a night and day comparison to Flo's V8 Grill on the Disney Dream, where you get the typical theme park burger, and that's about it. So the food, I think for a long time I said the food on the Disney Cruise Line is great. And it was one of the things that people talk about, was one of the things that I talked about for a long time. But these last couple cruises on the Wish and on the Dream, I don't say that anymore. I've had enough experiences on other cruises that have much better food than Disney. So again, there's another value point that Disney used to have that they don't have anymore. And now with the ships getting bigger and bigger, we talked for a long time about the problems with the Wish and how it has like 50% more people, but not 50% more space to do things with those people. And it's a huge problem. And I'm actually sort of excited for this new ship, not the Treasure, because that's just a copy of the Wish. I'm excited for the Global Dream ship, the half-finished one that they built, because they're coming in with a ship that already has the floor plans and the spaces all built, and Disney just has to decorate them. And I'm very excited to see how different this ship is going to be when Disney didn't design it from the ground up, because in my mind, the Wish is terrible from a design standpoint and a construction standpoint and a public space standpoint. I can't see that this newest ship is going to be worse than the Wish or the Treasure in terms of the design and the layout and the things like the tiny elevators and not enough elevators and things like that. So I'm kind of excited. I mean, it's a number of years off, but I'm kind of excited to see how this ship turns out and whether people actually like it better than the ships that Disney designed from the ground up. Let's see. Yeah. I mean, the people that are talking about not doing Disney as their first cruise. I mean, there's an argument about a small ship versus a big ship too, and let me just address that because I think we're out of time, and I think Florida Man is here now. The Disney small ships, the Magic and the Wonder, are 25 years old now, but they've been kept up really, really well, and they really have the Disney magic, and they're really nice. A lot of these other cruise lines like Carnival and Royal Caribbean, I don't know that they keep up their older ships as much. And so the new ships are big and amazing and maybe too big for some people. But I honestly think they're better designed and the public spaces are better designed, at least in my experience on the Carnival Mardi Gras and the MSC Meraviglia that we went on last year. The public spaces are better designed for large groups of people than the newest Disney ships. And so the argument of a smaller ship, it's easier to navigate, it's easier to find things, is a valid one, as long as the cruise line has been, adequately refurbishing their ships every couple of years or whatever, and keeping up with those things. And I know Disney has, and so I think I would recommend, if you want to do a small ship and an older ship, the Magic and the Wonder may be a good choice versus a 25-year-old Royal Caribbean or Carnival cruise ship. I haven't been on the 25-year-old Royal Caribbean or Carnival ships. I don't know that I ever will be. But I know the Magic and the Wonder are still great even after 25 years. And so, all right, I think we're going to call this quits. Thanks everybody for watching. If you enjoyed my ranting and Eric's ranting, you can a Diff'Rant Perspective as a WIGS exclusive show happening every couple of weeks or so on a random schedule throughout the year. Friday nights at 7 p.m. Whenever there's not a Boxed In, for the most part. We kind of tandem with Boxed In to fill out the Friday night schedule. But so if you enjoy this, please. Well, if you enjoy this, first of all, please go to toys.wdwnt.com and leave a donation, because the reason that we're all here this weekend is to raise money for Toys for Tots. So again, toys.wdwnt.com and leave a donation. All of your donation goes directly to Tots. If you enjoy this and would like to join WIGS to see more of my ranting, and also get to see Jill ranting, which you didn't get to see today, patreon.com/WDWNT gives you access to this show, as well as post shows for News Tonight and other exclusive content. You can join for as little as $2 a month and get access to a Diff'Rant Perspective. And then also, don't forget, tomorrow night, the big finale of this show is our charity auction. I know a number of people have been asking when is the full auction catalog going to be up and available. And as you know, I've been on a cruise for the past 5 days. So there's a couple of items up, but not all of them. I am going to end up spending most of tomorrow putting auction items up. So you don't have to necessarily go to there and look at the auction items now. But tomorrow at 5 p.m., tune in because Eric and Jill will be here for a very special edition of Boxed In, wherein they are going to unbox, but really just show off all the auction items. And so you'll get to see all the auction items. Eric and Jill will show them to you, talk about them, give you a nice 360-degree view of the items that you can bid on, and bidding will be open at that point in time. And then the grand finale will be the culmination of the live auction, where we run through all of the items and take the last bids. And a new thing this year, and I'm very happy, and I know many of you will be very happy that this year, if you bid on an item in our charity auction, as long as you have a United States shipping address, Eric and I are going to guarantee that your item will arrive before Christmas. So if any of these things you want are going to be Christmas presents for somebody, as long as we're shipping within the United States, Eric and I will personally take a guarantee with you that we will ship these items and that you will receive them by Christmas. So this is our new shipping department, which is basically just Eric. Our new shipping department is rocking and rolling, and any of you that have placed prize wall orders over the past couple of months have seen that. And so we're very happy to be able to guarantee that you'll get your items before Christmas. I know that was a big problem in the past, and we're super excited to tell you that we've put procedures in place that the shipping issues of the past are no longer a problem. And so I guess, Jake, do we have a commercial or break or something we want to take before we have Haymaker come up on stage? Thanks everybody for watching, and stay tuned.